Welcome back. I've got Michael Shaw on the line. Michael, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am really good today. Thank you so much for being on the show today. Why don't you share a little bit about you and then we'll jump into the conversation?
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited to be on the show. It's such an important platform because burnout, resilience, and personal growth, they're not just concepts. They're survival skills for high achievers who often look successful on the outside, but are feeling stuck, anxious, or burned out on the inside. And I know this because I was one of them. So it's really an honor to be here to share my story and my method. And just a quick introduction. So I am Michael Shaw, and I'm a mindset coach who helps high achievers dismantle outdated belief systems and rebuild lives of clarity, resilience, and alignment. And I'm sure, like many of your listeners, I once defined myself by achievement. I consistently pushed my mind and my body. I built and sold two successful fitness businesses, and I put myself through extreme training for bodybuilding competitions, Muay Thai fights, triathlons, Spartan races, even poker tournaments. And I was always chasing the next win as if my worth depended on it. And from the outside, everything looked great. It looked like I had it all. But the truth is that all that drive actually was trauma, anxiety, and a lingering sense that no matter what I accomplished, it would never be enough. And my turning point actually didn't come from a big win. It came from an complete emotional collapse. The identity that built my success, the relentless overachiever, was the same one that was keeping me stuck in these negative patterns. And I was leading life from fear of failing, fear of not being enough, fear of losing what I had built. And that collapse turned out to be the doorway to transformation, and it forced me to stop surviving and start living in alignment.
Well, thank you for walking us through that journey. And mine is quite similar in many ways, where you just get the accolades, you build up the resume with the skills and the honors and everything else, and you look back and you go, yeah, was I happy during that time? And
Hmm.
the majority of the time, that answer would be, no, I wasn't.
Yeah.
And you think to yourself, well, if I'm not enjoying myself, why am I doing it? And a lot of it is, either you're trying to impress someone. Maybe you're trying to convince yourself. Maybe you're trying to run away from something. There's so many
There
different
you
things
go.
it could be. But ultimately, it boils down to where do you want to be? Where are you now? What steps do you want to take to get to, the next level? And it happens time and time again, where so many people that I've had the fortune to be able to chat with over the years, a common theme amongst the majority of them that are, in their definition, successful. They went through something that was, life altering. It could be shattering. It could be all kinds of different things. I had
Sure.
a individual on the show yesterday, and she's 100 million year revenue generating machine. I would call her a machine. She's a human being, of course, but she's a spark plug to say the least. But not that long ago, she was climbing up 14 flights of stairs in her apartment because her key fob wouldn't work anymore because she was 3 months late on her rent and her lease was up. And in order to get the fob to work again, you had to renew the lease, and the landlord wasn't ready to renewed the lease yet because she was 3 months behind. So she went
Huh.
from not being able to pay rent for 3 months to 100 million plus annual revenue stream in their businesses. And
Right.
it tenacity, grit, and that point of, okay, I don't like this anymore. What do I need to do? Who do I need to talk to in order to make things better for me? And I think that's why the work that you do is so critically important. And I tell people time and time again, it's like, well, why am I going through this? What's this? What's this? And I'll ask some probing questions, just kind of get an idea of how they think. And, it's pretty clear right away that their mindset, which is an area that you spend a ton of time in, is pretty much the key to the doors that you're opening. And if you want to open up the right doors, maybe go see that locksmith and get some new keys because you want to open up some different doors. Because what doors you have been opening, I'd ask them, are they working for you right now? And they unanimously say, no, not really. Like, okay, well, quit opening that door. Easier said than done, but you got to start with some simple premises and then you go from there. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, in addition, if I could piggyback on what you just said, sometimes things are, especially with high achievers, things are working great to a point, and then they feel stuck trying to get to the next level. Um, and that's where we get into the be, do, have principle. Who do I have to be to do what's necessary to have the result that I want? And you may be extraordinarily successful, but hit a plateau. Maybe you've built a $500 million a year business, but you want it to be 5 billion and you can't seem to make that next leap. Well, who you have to be to get to the 5 billion is not the same person that you had to be to build it. Um, Simple analogy is, you know, um, who Kobe Bryant had to be to get into the NBA right out of high school is not the same person he needed to be to win 6 championships, right? Which is why he was the first in the gym and the last out. So it's you find that in all walks. Who you have to be to get drafted is not the same person you have to be an all-star, right? Um, who you have to be to get recruited by whatever firm it is you want to get recruited by is not who you have to be a partner. So so that's a familiar refrain. And then where it leads to burnout, is most people think burnout is about long hours and or corporate stress. But what I've learned is that burnout actually isn't about time, it's about a misalignment. And when your actions, values, and identity are out of sync, your system eventually breaks down. So the antidote to burnout isn't just rest. It doesn't get fixed with a 1 week vacation. You have to reconnect with who you are, what you value, and how you choose to show up in the world, which is kind of echoing what you just said.
Well, you're going through, burnout in my own personal journey. Yeah, it was, of course, there were long hours. Yes, there was a lot of issues on that, but a lot of it was just there was not in alignment, not having boundaries around when I work and when I did, not having boundaries around the type of food that I was eating. I wouldn't call it food. Brown paper bag, you order it through a microphone. You can kind of guess what kind of food that was.
Right. Sure.
Not that's not food in my opinion. And that obviously takes a toll on you and you get to have your own cardiologist if you continue to eat all of that. And I know that front and center. And actually, I just came from my cardiologist from a checkup earlier today. So he's grumpy as usual. So all's right in the world. He's a grumpy cardiologist, but he's been my cardiologist for years. So we know each other well enough. It's like that's who he is. I'm not about to change him. It works for him. Everything's good. But when I think about burnout, and I agree with you wholeheartedly on it, because I see it all the time. Where it's like burned out, working hours, all this stuff. You take a week's vacation, you come back. That doesn't fix anything because it takes you days to detox from the stress, high impact, high pressure, high everything that you are experiencing. It takes days, if not a full week, for you to kind of get to a little bit more level state. And all of a sudden, okay, finally feeling better. Oh, crap, tomorrow's Monday, I'm back at work. You haven't relaxed yet. You've just been, basically going from 150 miles an hour. Now you have come down to zero where you're not moving at all, and now you got to crank it back up again. You haven't done the work either, to figure out, okay, and I ask this a lot, it's in a way a lot like, couples therapy. It's like, okay, let's remember a time when you two actually liked each other, okay? And you talked to each other and instead of barking at each other, let's go back to the courting of each other, all those days. What was that like? And it's the same thing like with a job, if you're blaming your job for burnout. Why did you apply to that role? What about that role enticed you? What was your first few days like? Well, what did you feel? What kind of were you feeling excited? Were you scared? Were you just thrilled that you're finally working in the career that you've always wanted to work in? And then you work in it for a while and you realize, I hate this career. And there's nothing wrong with that. How would you have known? I mean, you can research it and ask AI to tell you all the pluses and minuses, but in your mind, if you think that's the career you want to be in, that's the direction you're going to take. And it's okay to change your mind. But you'll also have to pause and slow down a little bit to be able to figure out, okay, why am I feeling this way? And kind of step back a little bit and look at it from a little bit wider vantage point, or have a trusted advisor or a friend that will be truthful to you and not just supportive. You want support. It's a good feeling, but you also want friends to hold you accountable and tell you,
Sure.
yeah, Mike, you're full of, and this is what we're seeing, which my friends did when I was burning out. And of course, I didn't hear them, but you live and you learn. But I agree with you. With burnout, you have to figure out where the misalignment is. Sometimes it just could be, what's going on in your world outside of work that causes it, or it could be, the place that you used to love working for has had some changes and you're no longer in alignment, and that's okay. If you recognize that, then you can kind of crank back the emotions a little bit and stick to the role and the job at hand, do it to the best of your ability while you look for something else that is in alignment with who you are today. Because using the analogy of going from a multi-million to a multi-billion entity, you got to be a different person. What got you here won't get you there. And I know people hate hearing that, but that's the whole idea about life. It's about growing and learning and continuing to learn and continue to grow. So, up to your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, it's actually, I go even a little bit deeper because alignment is the key word here. And most coaches and therapists will give people strategies to cope with problems. And what I prefer to do and the way I operate differently is I reframe the whole foundation of how you see yourself. And within my framework, which I call the mindset mastery, mastery mindset method, is about identity transformation, um, not just motivation. And basically, we have five pillars. And the first thing we do is we revisit the break, right? And that we begin by revisiting a primal moment of trauma, the psychic break, we call it, when you shifted from, and it usually happens before you're even 10 years old, but it's where you shift from operating from the light of your soul and you're shifting into the fear and fragmentation of ego. And that's where your outdated belief system begins to be formed. And then we shift into a phase of awareness where we recognize the unconscious beliefs and protective patterns that are driving your behavior. And then we rewire by replacing those outdated beliefs with ones rooted in your chosen identity. And then the fourth phase is the all important alignment. And this is where two critical pieces come in. We create what's called your I am declaration, right? This is 10 or 12 very clear statements starting with I am that declare who you are and how you show up, right? This is who you want to be and how you want to show up in the world. And then we define your core values, five or six non-negotiables that serve as the filters for every decision, right? And the combination of this declaration and your core values is the result of breaking out of the old belief systems and finally living in congruence with your identity-based beliefs. And then finally, we have activation. You touched on it before, which is building daily habits, boundaries, and systems that reinforce this identity. And when you do this work, you stop operating as the person your trauma built and you start leading as the person you choose to become. And to give an example to address what you were talking about, you cannot believe how many people I work with, you know, successful people who just are feeling unfulfilled or stuck or in a rut. And I ask them, well, tell me your core values. And they will say, I value autonomy and entrepreneurship. And I say, well, then why are you in a 9 to 5? Why are you not working for yourself? Why are you not creating your own business? So they're completely out of alignment. So if and why? Because something in their outdated belief system told them this is where I need to be, as you were just saying. So it's not just that they're misaligned because the company's changed direction, right? They're misaligned because they haven't even they're not even conscious of what they actually want and where they want to be. And sometimes I can go into a company and look and I can do a little bit of work with each person and go through interviews with them and I can say, well, you're in the right company, you're just in the wrong job in the company. You should be over here because you say you want to be creative and you're stuck over here, you know, pushing numbers and pencils all day. So that alignment is the word. It's the buzzword. It's the most important part.
Yeah, because accountants that want to be creative, you don't want to have creative accounting. You end up in jail for that.
Right.
So, yeah, head over to the marketing folks. Marketing is a lot more fun, and and I say that because my original background was in public accounting. Worked for a CPA for first part of my career. So, and I find marketing a lot more entertaining and interesting than counting numbers. I mean, the thought of doing a journal entry, doing any type of bookkeeping or accounting makes me nauseous when that was my original career and I wanted to
Mhm.
go into that. But I did this exercise, haphazardly, not as structured as what you guide people to, but I came to the realization it's like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I even remember talking to family members about it, and they were like shocked. They're like, "Why are you walking away from this career? You've put so much time in it. You got a degree in it. Been you're a decade into it." It's like, just don't want to do it. Uh,
Find something you love and call it work.
yep, exactly. And I did. And then I did it again and I've done it again and I'll probably do it again. It just I give myself permission to live my life and go, I want to try that. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And have fun along the way because we all have, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending how you look at it, we all come with expiry dates. Thankfully, none of us really know what those are. I wouldn't want to know because I don't know it would alter how I go about things. It may be good, may be bad, but that's a whole deeper conversation. But I love, I love the pillars that you laid out there, and when you're working with people through those pillars, is there a common area where they you can tell, okay, I think they're starting to get it now, or is it one of those things where it may take to the fourth or maybe even the last one to, for them to go, ah, and it may vary. I'm guessing because everybody's at different, phases and mindsets in life and all of that. But I'm just curious on that if
Sure.
if you see some people that tend to have breakthroughs a little bit in different
Yeah.
areas.
The aha moment usually comes in the examining the beliefs. You know, very often we go through what will be a 15 or 30-day exercise where we examine a belief per day. And I always ask, well, if you were in a boat and this belief had weight, would the belief be weighing your boat down or would it be helping your boat float? And if it's weighing your boat down, well, too many of those beliefs and you're going to sink, right? So the practice that we do is if it's weighing you down, if it's not helping you move forward, then we thank that belief with love, we call it, because it did serve you at one time. Okay. And then we cast that belief out. And in that, that's we don't do this unless we're coached to do it. It's not like everybody's sitting around all day going, oh, I wonder why I'm acting this way and what belief is causing it. Right. So most people don't ever take the opportunity to do this self work and examine exactly why am I doing this? And realizing, holy shit, these beliefs that I'm operating from, I've been operating from these for 30 years. And, energy out, energy in. That's why I keep recycling and ending up in the same place. I may get up, but somehow I keep ending up here. I get up again, but why am I back here again? And it's frustrating. But you have to get down to that root cause. So yeah, that aha moment usually comes in the belief system phase.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But it's great when you do it. And I know the executives too, because I've worked with a ton of them, that are really successful. But you'll peel back a couple layers, and there are times where they're
Hmm.
either worn out, scared,
Hmm.
lack self-confidence, and you go, how in the world do you lack that? And it's not that they're faking it. They're not.
No.
They're confident when they're doing their work. They're in the zone. They're leading the organization to growth and everything else. But when they have those quiet moments to themselves, they constantly, because of those old, outdated, or incorrect beliefs that they have, they say, I don't belong here. And I just go, oh, no, 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 no. We got to figure out a way for you to recognize that not only do you belong here, if that's what it turns out when you do the exercise, but you're thriving, and look at the impact you're causing. Look what
That,
look what
yeah.
look at what you've done in this organization over the last 5 years. We all know it has been a shit show. There's no other way to describe it. It's been bad for a lot of companies, but there have been a ton of companies that have been crushing it for the last 5 years
Mhm.
because they're in alignment. They've got the right people in the right place working in their sweet spots, and they're doing amazing things, and they're having an absolute blast doing it.
Well, think about it this way, right? Because you literally just described the mechanism of burnout, right? If something deep inside the leader of the company lacks confidence, well, then they're racing to outrun that lack of confidence, right? They're working double time, triple time, so no one sees that. Okay. So now they're leading from a place of misalignment. So how's their company going to be aligned? Right? How how's that mission statement and core value of the company going to be followed by the people in it if the leader is misaligned and leading from that place? And it's a trickle down effect, and you see it all the time. Whereby when you do get a leader who is self-realized and has done work and is leading from alignment, I mean, you know, you see it immediately, right? And those are the companies that are flourishing and that's so easily identifiable what their identity is.
And I think of an example as we close of Mike Sievert, who runs T-Mobile, and the
Mhm.
expansion that that organization has seen over the last few years and continues to do so, and the endeavors, all the things that they're doing. But you look at them, and I know people that work within the organization, and they say, "Oh no, he's the real deal. This is not a LinkedIn facade kind of thing. What you see
Right.
is what you're posting is just a sliver of who he really is, and it's just that, a thousandfold." So,
Sure.
Michael, I've loved this conversation. Where can people find out more about you and all this amazing work you're doing?
Absolutely. Well, what I want to tell people, if there's one thing I want you to take away, it's that whatever burnout or pain you're feeling, I understand it can feel like a prison. But it can also be a portal if you look in the right place, right? So burnout doesn't mean you're broken. It means that your old identity has run its course. And when you stop seeing setbacks as problems and start seeing them as invitations to grow, you open the door to a whole new way of living. I promise you, I've been there, I've done it. It's phenomenal when you come out the other side, and your past doesn't define you. But if you're brave enough to revisit it, it can refine you. So if you're listening and you've been quietly burning out or you feel stuck in outdated patterns, I've put together two resources that I usually only share with my private clients. But I want to give them to your listeners, you know, just as a gift from me today for being here with us. First is my Fear to Freedom formula. It's a practical guide to breaking cycles of overthinking and of anxiety. And second is is an invitation to join me for your free mastery mindset breakthrough session. It's a 60-minute deep dive where we'll uncover patterns holding you back and map out a clear path to move forward with intention and purpose. And to get them, uh, either or both, just DM me the word freedom on Instagram at michaelshaw.mindset. It's Michael .mindset. Hit me with the word freedom and I'll send them both directly to you. Um, and if you're ready to stop leading from fear and start leading from alignment, please, I implore you, take me up on this opportunity.
Thank you for not. Thank you very much for that generous offer, and I'll definitely make sure we have that in the show notes. So, Michael, thank you again for being you and for all this amazing work you're doing.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure.